Are we in the last days? Jesus described what the last days would look like, saying, "And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed, for this must take place, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdoms against kingdom, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. All these are but the beginning of the birth pains." Matthew 24 verses 6 through 8. Paul also talk about people in the last days, describing their characteristics, but understand this, that in the last days there will be times of difficulty. For people will be lovers of self, lovers of money, proud, arrogant, abusive, disobedient to their parents, ungrateful, unholy, heartless, unappeasable, slanderous, without self-control, brutal, not loving good, treacherous, reckless, swollen with conceit, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having the appearance of godliness but denying its power. Avoid such people. 2 Timothy 3 verses 1 through 5. I am sure that we could match this description with people we have met or know of through the media. Even though wars have always happened, and even though people have had character described by Paul, from these indications we can see that we are in the last days. Further to this, though, we have some conclusive evidence that we are in the last days, which is that the Holy Spirit has been poured out on God's people through the prophet Joel. God said of the last days, "And it shall come to pass afterward, that I will pour out my Spirit on all flesh. Your sons and your daughters shall prophesy. Your old men shall dream dreams, and your young men shall see visions. Even on the male and female servant in those days I will pour out my Spirit." Joel 2 verses 28 through 29. Whenever God promises something, it is always fulfilled, and this was done at Pentecost. See Acts 2. This shows us that we are in the last days because the Holy Spirit has been poured out into the lives of character of Christians, including today. It is important that we are making the best decision of the times because the days are evil. Ephesians 5 verse 16. By preaching the good news and making disciples of Jesus. Indeed, Jesus himself tells us to go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Matthew 28 verse 19. We are not instructed to sit on our hands and wait for Christ's returns. We are called to action, and that action is to preach so that others will follow Jesus. To see that we are in the last days can cause us some confusion from a human perspective with our relatively short lifespans. To say the last day is a very short period of time, and indeed it may be. However, it may also be many years, decades or hundreds of years from now. We simply do not know. there are two things to note here. First is that the Bible speaks regarding time from God's perspective, where we are told that with the Lord 1 day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is as 1 day. 2 Peter 3 verse 8. From God's perspective, these last days are a short time, even if from our human perspective it appears much longer. Second, in that concerning that day and hour no one knows, even not even and the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but the Father only, as Jesus tells us in Matthew 24 verse 36. As a result of us not knowing when these things will happen, we must not be complacent. Just because Jesus has not returned in the last 2,000 years does not mean that he will not return soon. Jesus warns us against being complacent, saying, "Therefore you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming, and at an hour you do not expect." Matthew 24 verse 44. In summary, the Bible clearly indicates the what will happen and how people will be during the last days, and that the Holy Spirit will be poured out on God's people, which happened at Pentecost. As we are in the last days, we are told to witness the people, to tell them about Jesus and encourage them to follow him. We do not know specifically when Christ will return, but we know that it will come suddenly and has been planned by our Father since before the world began. I hope answer this answer help you to find peace with God through Jesus Christ. I encourage you to attend a local Bible believing church and speak to the leader about your question.